Okay. It is an absolute honor for me to introduce our keynote address this morning, delivered by the City of Burlington's Mayor Emma Mulvaney-Stanak. Emma was sworn in as the 43rd Mayor of Burlington on April 1st, 2024. She is the first woman and first out LGBTQ+ person to serve as the city's chief executive. Emma previously served in the Vermont House of Representatives and on the Burlington City Council. Her work as an elected leader is informed by her professional experience as a labor and community organizer and social change strategist and consultant. Mayor Emma has named 3 major priorities in her first year: creating a responsive, effective, and efficient community safety system, fostering ample, safe, and affordable housing, and building a comprehensive and cohesive citywide climate strategy. Join me in giving Mayor Emma a warm welcome.
Boots is not a great thing on the stage at UVM. Okay, first time. Good morning, everyone. How is everyone doing this morning? Good. That's right, Chapin. Yes, there's the energy. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you, Sandy, for that introduction. Good morning, everyone. I'm grateful to be with you here this morning at the 3rd Annual CATMA Summit to talk about the future of our communities, our climate, and the role that transportation plays in both. Let me just start first by expressing my appreciation for the theme of this year's summit, adapting to change. I think a lot about adaptation as the new mayor of Burlington. We are facing so many complex and overlapping challenges that adaptation is really the only path forward. The definition, I'm going to get technical and scientific for a second. The definition of adaptation is modification of an organism or its parts that make it more fit for existence under the conditions of its environment. Because that's scientific and technical, I just want to make sure you're clear, but this is exactly what the city of Burlington, the region, and the state need in the times of change that we are confronting because of both the economic, political, and climate uncertainty that we face. After 6 months on the job as mayor, I can share some things that I've learned about adaptation. Relationships are critically important. Strong communication is key. And creativity and self-reflection as leaders is absolutely critical. This is important in the immediate challenges we face, but is essential as we look towards the future. Our future, especially as it relates to climate, is alarming and downright scary, as we already have witnessed with recent storms and flooding here in Vermont. I look at my own hometown of Berry City and have never seen that city underwater twice in 2 years. The economic reality of working people, both low-income and even moderately income folks, is also daunting, as we see the gap of Vermonters' wages and salaries and the cost of housing and basic needs, including transportation costs, continue to widen. Municipal and state budgets are losing the large infusion of federal funding from pandemic relief, and leaders are now faced with making difficult budget decisions while balancing the challenge of keeping taxes affordable for Vermonters. When I took office in April, the city of Burlington faced a $14 million budget gap for our fiscal year. Just for context, our general fund budget is just shy of $100 million. It was quite sizable. This was due to the growth of our local government using one-time federal funds and a reliance on an imbalanced tax base that places a significant burden on residential property taxpayers. The loss of these federal resources placed additional pressures on all municipalities, the state of Vermont, and organizations like Green Mountain Transit, which were faced to either choose to face cutting public services, significantly increasing fares, or identifying alternative funding sources. Put another way, we are all, by necessity, having to adapt, especially if we are committed to values such as equity and affordability. This present fiscal challenge leaves us seeking answers to a few core questions. How will people be able to afford to stay in Vermont and in the city of Burlington? How will our policy decisions and investments in public services, including transportation, or the lack thereof, impact all of these overlapping realities? These are not easy questions to answer. As leaders, we have to hold space for dialogue, innovation, and embracing adaptation to change. When we do this together, it becomes a little less daunting to figure these all out rather than being stuck working parallel to each other in institutional silos. CATMA's existence and evolution is an excellent way, an example of adaptation and collaboration to address current and future challenges. In the early 90s, 3 of our region's largest institutions, as Sandy mentioned, the University of Vermont, Champlain College, and UVM Medical Center, faced the question of how to address their individual parking needs and mitigate negative traffic impacts. In that moment, each institution could have chosen to go it alone, but instead they took a collaborative approach to address a collective challenge. Fast forward 3 decades, and this work has set the foundation and organizational infrastructure that has brought us all here today. Again, seeking to address collective challenges through discussion and collaboration. The City of Burlington, which you saw up there, is a proud member of CATMA and leverages our knowledge and expertise to help our city employees, 700 or so strong, choose different and more sustainable ways to get where they need to go. As Vermont's largest municipality, Burlington is often at the leading edge of movements for change and innovation in policy. And as Burlington's new mayor, I plan to build upon that legacy. I named 3 major priorities in my first year. Number 1, creating a responsive, effective, and efficient community safety system. Number 2, fostering ample, safe, and affordable housing. And number 3, building a comprehensive and cohesive citywide climate strategy. These goals are furthered by core values as a city, and those include equity and inclusion, affordability, community engagement, good community engagement, I may add, as a former organizer, and good governance. These citywide goals and values have been incorporated into the work plans of all 18 city departments and set tangible expectations for our work together through the first year of in office. I chose to reappoint many of my department heads from the last administration to mine for the sake of strong continuity of government and to allow myself more time to assess if these leaders can adapt, if these leaders can get creative and also innovate alongside me as we move our city forward. Again, adapting to change, there it is again, adapting to this moment in time is critical as we must try new strategies and simply get real about what has not worked. We must be bold and persistent in our collective work and to effect this change. How people physically enter and leave and move around Burlington as a city continues to evolve as we consider the individual and collective changes we need to make with regards to climate change. We must think about this when considering how we demystify our city, densify, not enough coffee. I have small children. Densify. Thank you, Ruby, for waking up at 1:30 in the morning. Real talk, yeah. Okay. We must, let me start over. We must think about this when considering how we densify our city with more housing, how and why we encourage and support employers to actively choose Burlington as their home, and how we support people of all ages able to live in a physically accessible community. I want Burlington to be a city where it's more convenient, comfortable, and enjoyable to not be in a car in order to enjoy all the amazing and enjoyable things the city has to offer. We can do this if we do good planning, if we have good partnerships, and if we use people and climate-centered policies to really set our priority vision. And we are already making progress improving both our infrastructure and our zoning to create a modern, walkable, and bikeable city. Our Department of Public Works and our Director of Public Works is right over here, Chapin Spencer, little shout out. Our Department of Public Works is leading efforts to adapt our streets and intersections to be safer for pedestrians and cyclists. We're in the midst of 2 generational infrastructure projects. That's Chapin's favorite word, generational projects or phrase. One of which is Great Streets, Main Streets, and the other is the Champlain Parkway. The Champlain Parkway is nearing the end of a 40-year saga, or soap opera, depending on how you view it, which started with a design. Ask me about the multi-tiered filing cabinet sculpture. If you've never seen it in the South End, there's a real story behind it, and I've learned a lot as mayor about what's physically on that sculpture. It's a wonderful thing. Very instructive. Anyway, the Champlain Parkway is nearing the end of this 40-year soap opera, which started as when it was first designed years ago as a highway that would have went through the heart of Burlington, cutting off the downtown from our beautiful waterfront. Today, the first phase of the project has been right-sized and built as a neighborhood street with a shared use path for cyclists and pedestrians. And when we opened that first portion of the street a few weeks ago now, it was one of my first weird ribbon cuttings because I switched on the big light box to put traffic lights on. I don't think a mayor has done that before. I'll just claim that as a first. There we go. Our second big generational project is the Great Street Main Streets project, and phase one will accomplish two important goals for the city. Upon completion, we will have rerouted the city's 150-year-old ravine sewer. Yes, that was a real thing, the ravine sewer in the middle of the city, and that will make it possible to develop taller buildings and more housing in our downtown core. It will also ensure that the primary entrance to Burlington is designed as a slow street, with curb-separated bike lanes, wider sidewalks, and place-making amenities. Burlington's comprehensive development ordinance requires new multifamily housing developments as small as 5 units to engage in varying degrees of transportation demand management. Providing information and incentives to residents to encourage use of non-car modes of travel and maintaining active membership in a transportation management association such as CATMA. This is an important example of how municipal policy can help to guide our transportation future in more livable and a sustainable direction. Multiple city departments are working collaboratively to support the coordinated redevelopment made possible by the South End Innovation District zoning amendment. This coordination effort between Ride Your Bike LLC, Champlain College, and the City of Burlington serves as another opportunity to introduce residents to planning concepts and development practices that are human-centered and climate-forward. By integrating accessibility, livability, and sustainability in the earliest stages of design, this project will result in a new city neighborhood that is dense, walkable, bikeable, and car-light. And the city actually owns another parcel in this little area of the city here, and that will allow us to be even more of an active partner in this process going forward, to leverage that city asset to build not only more affordable housing, to be right at the decision-making table as we design this walkable, livable community. Reducing the need for parking and requiring TDM strategies are both important as we seek to build a climate-resilient city. Of equal importance is further reforming our zoning ordinances to allow for greater housing density. I just want to acknowledge our interim director, Charles Dillard, who's here from the Office of City of Planning. That office continues to engage in this work on a number of important fronts: the ongoing implementation of the neighborhood code, a crucial package of zoning amendments to promote infill development in our city, densify housing along transportation corridors, and expand the kinds of housing types available. By intentionally promoting housing density along major transportation corridors, we can make it easier for residents to choose non-car modes of travel to commute, shop, dine, and take care of other daily essentials. Thanks to a federal transportation grant, our offices of Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging and the City Planning Office are working together to create a scalable equity index map, which will overlay demographic census data onto city project data. This important tool will inform our resource allocations and investments for more equitable outcomes and well-being across city neighborhoods. The goal is for intentional data-driven allocations of capital funding in historically underserved neighborhoods in our city. As we consider capital funding allocations, we must also consider accessibility and ensuring our public spaces are thoughtfully designed and maintained for all residents. This means involving the city's advisory committee on accessibility in the planning and design of future projects. Our Parks Department, and that department head's not here, but I'll shout out to Cindy. Our Parks Department has done this intentionally on a number of projects already. One project I'd like to highlight, if you're down on the waterfront, you can see this, is a recently installed tactile sign and map that helps those with visual impairments navigate the Burlington's waterfront park. This is an example of how intentional engagement and thoughtful design can make our public spaces more welcoming and usable for all. Burlington has a number of planning documents that envision bold action on walk, bike infrastructure and climate goals. Implementation of these plans has sometimes been slow, and we have not yet to realize these visions to their full potential yet. In the future, Burlington will begin the process of updating these city plans, including the neighborhood plan for the new North End, our citywide comprehensive plan, our transportation plan, and our walk, bike action plan, and also our open spaces protection plan. We've already begin these conversations about integrating these planning efforts, fostering collaboration between departments, and leveraging community engagement opportunities to ensure that each of these plans work together towards tangible, data-driven, and evidence-based goals to create an affordable, livable, and climate-resilient city. I really want to be the mayor who's known as silo busting at the end of my time as mayor. However, even the best and most thoughtful crafted plans cannot be implemented by Burlington alone. Realizing the vision set out within each document will require deep commitment to relationship building with local, state, and regional partners like CarShare Vermont. I see Alicia over there, also awesome neighbor. CATMA, CCRP, with Charlie over there, and GMT. These efforts will also require collaboration with neighboring municipalities, each with their own plans for sustainable growth over the next several years. We are truly in this together. And by engaging collaboratively to address common challenges, we are better able and prepared to tell our collective story and advocate for solutions that benefit our region and our residents. The current and most pressing example where we can and should be working together and where everyone in this room today has a role to play relates to the draft service reductions proposed by Green Mountain Transit as they face their own post-pandemic budgetary challenges. GMT has long faced funding uncertainty, and for a moment during the pandemic, we saw the benefit to our communities when public transportation was prioritized in the state budget. Municipalities and institutions must work together to make sure state funding is prioritized to keep this critical system going. It is imperative for both rural and urban communities alike. I recently advocated for VLCT, shout out to Ted over there, to amend their legislative agenda to specifically add protecting existing bus routes. And when I attended their first meeting as a new VLCT board member, and I'm happy to report it received a large majority of support from other members from across the state and was added to the agenda for the upcoming session. As we approach that new legislative session and biennium, it is incumbent upon each of us to be talking about the values of a robust, affordable, and reliable public transportation system connecting all of our communities and helping us reach our climate goals. I want to pause. I really appreciate Sandy recognizing especially former State Representative Kurt McCormick, because really so much of the transportation policy work and just sounding the alarm really came from that really forward-thinking leader. And as a former legislator myself, I had the opportunity to ride the bus with him a few times when I could make the schedule work on the linked bus. And it is so important to really know that it is possible, because he showed us the way to think about living in Burlington, living in a rural state differently, but also naming how incredibly important a good, vibrant transportation system is. He chaired the Transportation Committee in the House for a number of years, and even at one point, the Speaker noted this at some point earlier this summer, he was able to go all over the state using public transportation to visit all of, I believe, his committee mates around the state. That takes a lot of tenacity, but it shouldn't be that hard. It should be easy for all of us to access not only the inner core urban area of the city, but elsewhere in the state. And really, to do that, we need a vibrant public transportation system. So fully funding GMT should be an easy yes by legislators this upcoming legislative session if we're making people and climate-centered policy decisions in this state. We need to also develop a sustainable funding model that not only allows GMT to maintain current service, but also strategically plan for future growth and expansion of key routes in this state. This is an important moment for the state to commit to policy that makes Vermont a more affordable and equitable place for us to live. We can do this. We're living in a moment where change is happening at a dizzying pace, and headlines in the media can be a source of despair. But it is also moments like this that create space for positive change and new ways of thinking and being. The first step, of course, is to vote. Today marks 3 weeks before the election, and I have to give you a PSA. Remember, we got all mailed our ballots here in Vermont. Thank you, state government. You still have time to return them by mail this week, but otherwise, return them in person, make sure they count, and then call every single person you know and make sure they vote this election cycle as well. But the most important step comes after we actually vote on election day, because no one elected leader, not a president, not a governor, and not even the mayor of Burlington, can create the type of change we need today. So it requires each of us in this room today to work together. Change happens when all of you get engaged, have conversations with your friends, your families, even those who politically disagree with us, your coworkers, everyone. And it also happens when you write your representatives and your senators and even the governor of Vermont and say loudly and clearly that you want a well-resourced public transportation system here in Vermont. You can also find ways to get locally involved, and if you live or work in Burlington, I welcome you to be part of our community engagement sessions as we work on the various Burlington planning efforts I mentioned earlier. We want to know what kind of community you want to call home here in Burlington. Change often doesn't happen overnight, and it's often incremental at times, especially in government work. This is where you laugh if you're in government, like government's slow, right? Come on, somebody, thank you, all right. However, we need to, all of you to be part of both the incremental work, but also the bigger change that is possible in a state like Vermont. We can be bold. We can make big changes needed to support our environment and the people who live here today and future generations. My team hears me say this closing phrase almost daily about the enormity of the work facing us here in Burlington, but I think it is a good and true phrase for our community and state, so I'm going to close with it. This is not on the shoulders of one mayor or her team. We are in it together as an entire community. Truly, we are at our best when we're working together, side by side, for a healthier and more vibrant community. We are truly in this together. Have a wonderful conference. Thank you so much for being here today and having me. Thanks so much.